Let's begin to work with Illustrator and see some of the things that we can create using the various tools. We're going to start off by just drawing a simple line. I'm going to hold down my Shift key to constrain the line to the vertical or horizontal plane, and it is constrained to any multiple of 45-degree angles. Once we have the line in place, if you need to resize the line, you can switch back to the Selection tool. The keyboard shortcut for this is V. You can simply grab one of the points and drag to shorten the line. Remember, if you want to keep the line constrained, you'll hold down the Shift key. I'm going to place the line in the middle of my screen. Now what I want to do is I want to copy the line. The duplicated line should intersect precisely in the middle. We'll go ahead and do this by using the Rotate tool. The Rotate tool is located right here, or you can use the keyboard shortcut of R. With this tool selected, if you click Return or Enter, you'll be able to open up the Rotate dialog box. Just like with the Move dialog box, this will give you a preview of any change that you're going to specify with the line. I'll go ahead and change the angle to 90 degrees, and then I'm going to select Copy to make a copy. As you can see, now I have two intersecting lines that intersect precisely in the middle. I'm going to click V to switch back to my Move tool. I'll select both lines, and then we're going to click R to go back to the Rotate tool. I'll click Enter or Return to open up the Rotate dialog box, and now we're going to go ahead and rotate by 45 degrees. Once again, I'm going to create another copy. As you can see, now I have four intersecting lines. Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to some of the other shape tools. I'll go to the Rectangle tool, and because it has a little triangle, we have sub-tools located underneath. I'm going to tear off this panel so that I have easy access to the drawing tools. We'll start off by making an elliptical type of shape. As I mentioned before, if you want your elliptical type shape to be a perfect circle, you'll add the Shift key. You'll need to hold the Shift key down and release the mouse first, and then the Shift key. That will ensure that the shape stays as a perfect circle. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip the foreground and background colors. This will give me a black fill and no stroke. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an exact copy of this circle, and we're going to use the Scale tool to do that. In order to invoke the Scale tool, you can click on it in the toolbar, or you can use the keyboard shortcut of S. Once again, I'm going to hit Return to open up the Scale dialog box. This will allow me to specify how I want this object to be scaled. I'm going to scale it down 50%. If you use a uniform scale, you'll uniformly scale the shape. Obviously, a non-uniform scale is going to unproportionately scale the shape. You also have the option to scale corners, which isn't going to affect our circle, and to scale strokes and effects. This is unchecked, and we don't have any strokes or effects, so it won't matter in this case. Once again, I'm going to click Copy to create a copy. Now I have two circles. I'm going to double-click on the fill color, and the second circle is selected, the smaller one, and I'm simply going to select a different fill color. As you can see, now I have two circles that are sitting right on top of each other. We'll go ahead and we'll grab this circle and we're going to place it on top of the lines that we've created earlier. These little pink guides will appear and let me know when an element is aligning with anything else on the screen. If you don't see those pink lines, you'll need to go to View, Smart Guides, and make sure that this is checked. You can also turn this on and off by using the keyboard shortcut of Command U. Now that I have my circle, I'm going to select on my Star tool. When you have the tool selected, you can either choose to click Hold and Drag to create the shape, or if you have the tool selected and then you double click on your artboard, it'll open up the Tools dialog box where you can specify different parameters about the tool. So in this case, I'm going to make a 4-pointed star, and I'm going to change the inner and outer radius. I'll make the outer radius 50, and the inner radius is going to be 20. This will make a star that has slightly spikier points. I'll fill the star shape with the default white fill and black stroke. Then I'm going to go ahead and go up to the option bar and I'll increase the width of the stroke. We'll make that 5. I'll use the V key to switch back to the Move tool, and I'm going to position the star shape right on top of the circular shape, like so. If you want to scale the shape, instead of using the Scale tool, we can use the bounding box that shows, and if we grab the shape by one of the outer corners, we can scale. Now, if you want to scale from the center of the shape, hold down your Option or Alt key. In addition, I'm going to add my Shift key to constrain the proportions so that it stays aligned with the initial shape. I'm going to scale the star up slightly, like so. Once again, you'll need to release the mouse first and then the modifier keys. Now that I have several shapes on my screen, I'm going to use my selection tool and I'm going to hold down my Shift key to select multiple objects. Right now I have the star and both circles selected. I'm going to group these elements together. We can create a group by going to Object, Group. Now these objects will be selected as one particular unit, so if I move this around, they're going to all move together. In Illustrator, when you group elements together, you have a way to access the individual items, and all you have to do is double-click. This takes you into something called isolation mode. Once you're in isolation mode, the rest of the screen is going to become dimmed out, and you'll be able to access the unique shapes without having to ungroup the objects. Once you're done working in isolation mode, you'll simply click the arrow to exit isolation mode or double-click on the artboard to get out of the isolation mode. I'm going to select the grouped shape. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the Rotate tool to create a copy of this particular shape. Now we've looked at the Rotate tool a little bit earlier, but this time I'm going to use it a little bit differently. You'll notice when I select the Rotate tool, I have a little turquoise target that appears in the center of the shape. This identifies the point of rotation. So using my Rotate tool, if I rotate this object, you'll see that it rotates around that center point. It will also scale around that point as well. I'm going to do Command or Control Z to undo. I want to move this point to the center of my lines. In order to move the point, with the Rotate or Scale tool selected, you'll hold down your Option or Alt key and simply click. As you can see, this transformation point has now moved to the center, and it's giving me a preview of what this shape is going to look like if it was rotated by 45 degrees. We're going to go ahead and rotate the shape by 90 degrees this time, and I'll go ahead and select Copy. Now I want to do that a couple more times. So instead of going back to the Rotate tool, we can use the Transform Again command. You can access this by going into Object, Transform, Transform Again, or the keyboard shortcut is Command or Control D. If I click this, it's going to remember the last used settings and apply them. So if I just click Command or Control D, you can see that it makes another copy of the same sort of shape. This is a great way for you to quickly build arrays of various shapes. And remember, this works with both Rotate and Scale. So you can go ahead and get very unique by using the Rotate command. Let's go ahead and let's make a scaled copy of this shape. We'll also flip it. If we want to create a flipped copy, you'll notice that underneath the Rotate tool, there's something called the Reflect tool. When we switch to the Reflect tool, if we double-click on the Reflect tool or hit Return, it will open up the Reflect tool dialog box. This will give you a preview of what the Reflect tool looks like. So if I reflect this particular object on the vertical axes, you can see that the circle is going to switch from the center to the outer edge. I'm going to go ahead and apply that, but I'm going to make a copy. Now I have two instances of this shape. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to scale down the copy. So I'll click S, and then I'll click Enter or Return, and we're going to go ahead and we'll scale this down by 50%. In this particular case, I'm going to scale strokes and effects. When I click this, you'll see that my stroke on the star shape is going to get a little bit thinner. Because I already have a second instance of this shape, I'm going to simply click OK rather than making a copy. Now we're going to switch to the Rotate tool, and with the Rotate tool selected, I'll hit Return or Enter. We're going to go ahead and we want to move the shape, but we don't want to rotate the tool around the center of the object, but rather the center of our lines. So I'll click Cancel. I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key and click right in the middle of the lines to move the transformation point. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to rotate by 45 degrees. If you ever want to check what your preview looks like and the preview isn't updating, just uncheck preview and recheck it again. This looks perfect. I'll go ahead and click OK to accept those changes. Now with this new shape selected, I'm going to move the transformation point to the center of our lines. So holding down Option or Alt, I'll click in the center. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to rotate 90 degrees. Once again, we can click Preview so that we can ensure this is where we want this shape to be. I'm going to select Copy, and then I'm going to use Command or Control D to duplicate that 2 more times. As you can see, I've very quickly been able to create a pretty complex shape by just using a handful of simpler shapes in Illustrator and harnessing the power of the transformation tools so that I can make a more complex drawing using these particular techniques. You can get super creative just using basic shapes and transformations in Illustrator, and you can build more complex and interesting pieces of art.